Welcome to Encounter Wargaming. I'm Jay, and today we're going to be continuing our look at the second ed of Warhammer 40,000 with Codex Space Wolves. Alright, so we're taking our look at the second ed Space Wolf Codex. First, let's check out that awesome cover art. Check that out. That is so cool. Wow. Look at this craziness up here. There's like a freaking Space Hulk in the background. That's insanity. Anyway, let's bust her open, boys and girls. Sweet. So as usual, you got some pictures of the cool old school minis. We've seen these old Tyranids already in a few of the books that we've covered. Awesome. This is the old Bjorn, I believe, this dreadnought here. Shows him slaying the serpent. They've got the same models over here. Against the Eldar this time. Look at the old jet bikes. How silly they used to look. Actually not all that different from the current jet bikes, but anyway. So this is the page we want to look at, as always, the most important page when cracking a classic book like this. And I'm seeing 1994 on as the date. I always like to look at the copyright date, because that basically, you know, really tells us when it's from, I should say. This is actually the first one we've opened where we haven't seen Rick Priestley's name listed, so that's interesting. We've got Wayne England, Jess Goodwin, Mark Gibbons, and Dave Gallagher. And of course, artwork by John Blanche, because everybody loves John Blanche's artwork. Yep, there you go. The amazing John Blanche style. So looking at the table of contents, this one's not quite as big as the Ultramarines one that we looked at last week, because of course, Space Marines is Space Marines, right? But the Space Wolves obviously operate very differently than most other Space Marine chapters, so they get their own book. So we're going through, like I say, the history, fluff as usual. It's classifying different units, the forces of the Space Wolves. Yeah, it's explaining to you the very different operation they have from the standard Codex Space Marines. Codex compliant Space Marines, I should say. Though they are one of the most loyal chapters, they do not comply with the Codex that Mr. Gilliman wrote after the heresy, and operate very differently, as we'll see. Because, of course, Longfangs, for example, are their veterans, which are actually their heavy support units, and their scouts, if you believe it or not, are not recruits. They are experienced warriors, which I find very interesting in comparison to the other chapters out there. The Bloodclaws, in fact, are their recruits, the young wolves. So, as usual, we got a whole bunch of fluff, and as I've said before, I won't go into detail explaining and reading all of this stuff for you. If you want fluff videos, please comment below, guys. And we might be doing something like that in the future, but for right now, this series is really just to cover the classic stuff, to show you guys the books, what they looked like, how things have changed from then until now, and etc., etc. But if you guys are interested in the fluff portions, I can do fluff videos, but just request it in the comments below, if that's what you're interested in. So check out this cool John Blanche artwork. I just love how grimdark the man's art was. So cool. So cool. Like this guy's got his little doggy. There we go. Primarchs, the Great Crusade, so going over sort of the general stuff and how the Space Wolves relate to that sort of storyline, which is great. Again, amazing artwork. I love the layouts of these old books. I guess mainly too because this is the era I started playing the game in, and so it kind of speaks to me on like a nostalgic level. So here we go. Here's the chapter organization of the Space Wolves. Now, we saw the Ultramarines Codex last week, and there was very specific organization and how the companies were laid out, the various colors that denote a specific company. Now, of course, most chapters have 10 companies of 100 Marines. At least that's what the Codex Astartes tells them they should have. Now, the Space Wolves here, as you can see, have 12 companies, right? Each governed by a wolf lord, as opposed to the standard 10 companies that are, you know, your standard battle companies, like the first being a veteran company, then, what is it, 2 to 5 are battle companies, and then you have like an all-assault marine company, an all-devastator marine company, an all-tactical marine company. It doesn't work like that with the Space Wolves. They have a mixture of all their various units within all of the companies. And they've even put here in dotted lines the 13th. Now that's the Lost Company, or the Wolfen as we know them now. It actually says Wolfen Company right there. And they were lost in the warp long, long ago. And again, that would get into incredibly in-depth fluff that surrounds this chapter and the Eye of Terror and all that kind of stuff. And again, we can get into that in other videos. Just comment below if you want to hear that stuff. But for right now, we're just taking a look at this awesome book. Cool. So we got some badges to show different types of Space Wolves. That's interesting. Sea Wolf. Spirit Wolf, Iron Wolf. Based on ancient legends from Fenris. I was like, how does this relate to Thunder Wolves? Cool. Ancient wolves, Russ fought and vanquished. Cool. The Grey Wolf represents Leman Russ himself. That's neat. There you go. Iron Priests. Neat. Them being the Tech Marines, of course, of the Space Wolves chapter. Wolf Scouts, there you go. Again, with the awesome sort of 90s aesthetic. Looks almost like a Necromunda gang or something. I would love to actually convert up some Wolf Scouts to look something like that with like some of the new Necromunda plastics mixed in. That would be amazing. And Dreadnoughts, how important they are to the Space Wolves. As you can tell, they have quite a few, at least in the current edition, they have quite a few character Dreadnoughts. I believe in this edition, they only had the one, which is Bjorn. There you go. And he used to have a pewter model back in this edition. Now he's got an awesome plastic model, which is incredibly detailed and amazing. But anyway, there he is. And there's a couple other special character ones that they've introduced now that didn't exist back in this era. But nonetheless, Dreadnoughts are obviously very important to this chapter. And strangely enough, here in the book, we've actually got what looks to be a White Dwarf article just inserted. That's kind of cool. Ooh, it's a battle report.
Hey everybody, I'm Adam.
And I'm Jay.
We are Encounter Wargaming.
And we wanted to celebrate hitting our 1,500 subscribers with giving some stuff away. What are we giving away, Adam?
Fort Bane! Yeah. Alright, we're calling this the 2,500 subscriber Forge Bane giveaway because that's the target we need to hit to give this puppy away.
That's right. So the first thing you need to do is share this video, the video you are watching right now. And
then click subscribe on YouTube.
if you haven't already.
That's it for one entry.
And the more you share it, hopefully, the more people we can get to hit subscribe and hit that 2,500.
Woohoo!
But there are other ways to win as well.
Tell them about it.
Well, you can follow us on Twitch. That will also get you an entry. So you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitch. On top of that,
support us on Patreon for 5 big buckaroo entries.
Crazy. So also all the people that already support us on Patreon, don't worry, you're also 5 entries. But also, you can hit subscribe on Twitch. Subscribing on Twitch will get you another 5 entries into the contest.
So good, and all of this to say thank you guys for all the support. We appreciate it very much. We've come a long way, and it's because of you.
It's true. It's been a wild ride, and thanks for all the support, all the help, and we want to give you some cool stuff as a thank you.
Awesome. So hey, remember to share this video, and guys, I think that's it. So we'll see you at our next
That's cool. Look at the old orcs, guys. This is the era I started playing, and I started playing with the orcs. I had the Gazkul. Had a bunch of these guys. Those are the old Pewtergoth models, which are awesome. Look at the old buggy here. Wow, that's even older than the current plastic buggy, which, believe it or not, the current plastic buggy was around when I started playing this game 20 to 25 years ago, whatever it was, 20 some odd years ago. because it was the Gorka Morka plastic range, and for some reason it's still the the current orc buggy, which drives me nuts. This is the old pewter one from Rogue Trader, and how cool is that? You look at the old Dreadnought, the old Rogue Trader Dreadnought. Insane. Because even when they came out with 2nd edition, they had a new pewter Dreadnought, which looked very, actually closer to what today are killer cans, than this Dreadnought right here, which had horribly sculpted legs, but looks goofy and awesome all at the same time. Cool. So there you go, showing the Orc Warband. We got Ragnar Blackmane's Warband. And you can even see the Space Wolf color schemes back then were almost like sort of bluish gray. In fact, they actually had a color called Space Wolf Gray, which was a very bluish gray. Nowadays, a lot of people paint their Space Wolves a very generic gray, which is cool. A little less cartoony, but I liked the cartooniness of this era, especially all the bright colors and stuff, which today, in comparison to today's aesthetics, looks kind of silly, because of course this game has gotten more and more grimdark over the years. But look how bright the yellows and reds and everything are. It's just wild. And there you go. I can't believe they actually included a battle report in this book. That is so cool. So we got the deployment, Orcs turn 1. Cool. And as you can see, everything's green flock tables, the old rounded Predator turret. So cool. That is a sweet piece of artwork. Loving it. I just love looking at this stuff because it just brings me back to my childhood. Take a good look at this, guys. Oh man. So cool. Turn 2. Wow. This is the way they used to do battle reports in the White Dwarf back in the day. Here's Andy Chambers with his sweet Lemmy beard. Lemmy style beard. Man is truly an orc and a space wolf at the same time. Man pioneered the 3rd edition orc aesthetic and rules and etc. As well, obviously a huge space wolf fanatic, hence this battle report. And it's interesting that they actually have the Predator painted as Dark Angels. I guess the studio hadn't painted up a Space Wolf Predator at this point, so they were just using a Dark Angel one, which is definitely interesting. Here we go, getting into the more paint scheme color pages. There's Bjorn. That's the old Bjorn model. Take a good look at it, guys. Compare, if you must, with the current one. It was basically just the same as the pewter dreadnought that every other Space Marine chapter had, except it had obviously the different sarcophagus, the wolf tails hanging around everywhere, and this whole arm was different. Other than that, it was basically the same pieces, if I remember correctly. All of the insignia and stuff like that are water transfers, of course, right? So the, I guess, center torso would just have to be a different pewter piece, and this arm be a different pewter piece, because the claw and of course the pelts here are quite different. But the legs are the same, the assault cannon's the same, smoke launcher's the same, everything's pretty much the same as the other pewter dreadnoughts, as I was talking about in the Ultramarines video, that were just basically a gigantic pewter paperweight. So looking at the old paint schemes, like I say, that very sort of blue-gray color. And of course on their shoulder pads we're dealing with very bright oranges, reds, yellows, white and black for the long fangs, which makes perfect sense because of course they're the old guys with the gray beards, whereas the blood claws have the orange beards, or sorry, red beards I should say, like red haired. Because these are Norse and Celts, right, basically, in the 41st millennium. Very Norse influenced Space Marine chapter. Again, with all the heavy weapons being on the shoulders. So there's your blood claws. So these are your recruits, actually. Believe it or not, they give them full suits of power armor. Which when I was a kid, I was like, huh? I thought recruits were scouts. But no, the scouts for the Space Wolves are, in fact, their veterans. Which is pretty cool, actually. Just adds a nice twist, making them a little different than your sort of vanilla Space Marines. Iron Priest. Looks very much just like a standard tech marine. fact, yeah, looking at it, the only thing that makes him Space Wolf specific actually is, well, first of all, the servo claw. Looks almost like a wolf head. Not to mention the wolf head on his thunderhammer. He's got a couple of wolf skulls. He's got one on his leg and one on his shoulder pad. But other than that, he's basically just a tech marine. And how sweet these models were, too. And then with the Terminators, of course, the only actual difference was the Sergeant. Oh no, I guess they all have skulls in the center of their chests and stuff. Okay. So they did do specific Space Wolf pewters, which is pretty cool. But they look very much like the standard plastics, which is okay. Again, there wasn't a whole lot of variance in sculpts back then, but it is what it is. Alright. Got some Wargear cards. Now, I'm not sure if I had these in my Wargear card video that I released. I thought I had everything, but again, this book obviously I didn't have when I was a child. I've purchased it in the 25 years since, so this one was kept in mint condition, which is excellent, because I will show you guys my Orc Codex that I had when I was a kid in the future. It's the only copy I have, and all the cards are cut out. But that's okay, because all those cards were in that Wargear card video that I showed you guys back a few weeks back. Cool. Mastercrafted Bull's Pistol, Frostfang, Chainsaw Blade fashioned from a rare metal. Cool. Pelt of the Wolfen. Reduces the enemy's chances of scoring a hit by -1. At 10 to 20 inches, the penalty is -2. At 20 to 30 inches, the penalty is -3. Huh. That's a handy little piece of Wargear. Cyber Raven, there you go. That's what the hell's his name? The librarian dude, the rune priest guy. Ah, oh, jeez, I can't remember his name right now. That's okay. Stormcaller, I guess? Cool, and again, the banners. Like I say, back in the day, they actually had the paper banners that you glued onto your guys, so you could literally like photocopy this page. Like, this is to scale. You could literally photocopy this page, cut these out, and then just like paint over it or color over it or whatever you gotta do, and then these little flaps just kind of flap around. You fold around the cross part on the pole. You know what I mean? These are actually really detailed. Crazy. Like I say, today, of course, they have plastic molded banners on a lot of the models, so this whole thing is just in the past, but it's just neat to note that a lot of things were made out of cardboard and paper back then. Cardboard must have been super cheap back in the 80s and 90s. Alright, so now we're actually looking at Space Wolf rules. So, they've got hatred when fighting the Thousand Suns. Cool. Rapid fire, yep, same as every other Space Marine. Break tests, just explaining these special rules. There we go, we got the Blood Claws. As you can see here, they actually have a better ballistic skill in your standard, or better weapon skill in your standard Space Marine, which is interesting. Oh no, Grey Hunters have a weapon skill of 5 as well. Huh. But they have a lesser, Blood Claws have a lesser ballistic skill, which is interesting, because they are combat specific. In fact, they have a Berserk Charge rule. Roll double their total number of attacks in hand-to-hand combat during the turn they charge. Yikes! Wow. That is nuts. In fact, the Longfangs, it seems, have a higher ballistic skill and weapon skill than standard Space Marines. That's crazy. So Space Wolves were like way better than normal Space Marines. Craziness. And Longfangs having a ballistic skill of 5? That's just dirty. Your Devastator squads are like amazing. And then Wolfguard Terminators have a weapon skill of 6. Holy crap. That's interesting. So why would the Wolf Scouts then have a weapon skill of 4 and a ballistic skill of 3 with a toughness of 3? So I guess they are Initiates. Or neophytes, I guess they call them. Young warriors of Fenris have been chosen to join the Space Wolves. Okay, so their scouts are... Well, so I was totally wrong. I stand corrected, guys. I was totally wrong. The Longfangs, I guess, are their veterans. And they get put as heavy weapon units rather than as veteran units. And of course the Wolf Guard are even more veteran than the Longfangs. Crazy. Weapon skill 6. Weapon skill 6, ballistic skill 5, Terminators, dudes. Like, really? Jeez. Lord, of course, weapon skill 7, ballistic skill 7, strength 5 times 5. I think that's the same as your standard Space Marines in this edition. Yep, because your Rune Priests go up in levels just like the Librarians. I'm pretty sure that's the same characteristics. Interesting that the basic Rune Priest is the same stat line as a standard Space Marine, except that he's got toughness 5, which I'd have to reference back to the last Ultramarine book, but I'm pretty sure that's the same as the Ultramarines and all other Space Marine chapters. Interesting, though, that your standard Grey Hunter has a weapon skill of 5, but the Librarian doesn't. Huh. They're Wolf Priests. Wow. Weapon skill, ballistic skill 6. Strength toughness 5. Whew. Jeez. Yep, Servitors, standard Servitors, Iron Priests. Yep, standard hero level character. Cool. Look at that art. That is so gnarly. This guy's got a braided mustache. Good times, good times, good times. And now we're getting into the army list. Alright, so just like normal, we got character. It's divided, like I said in past videos, there's no HQ, troops, elites. That all came about in 3rd edition. Back here we have characters, squads, and support. So you could have up to 50% of your army characters. You have to have at least 25% of your army squads. Now, strangely enough, that includes things like Terminators, Longfangs, so in this case, Wolf Guard, Longfangs, Blood Claws, all of it. Your Assault Squads, your Devastator Squads, they're all squads, right? And then support can be anything from artillery to tanks to allies, even. Yep, I'm just telling you the limitations. There you go, up to 50% of your points can be spent on support. Same thing, 50% of your points spent on characters, 25% at least must be squads. War gear list, war gear cards, dividing squads for battle, so that's your combat squad rule that we talked about in last week's video. So looking at their war gear list, it looks standard. Everything that all the other Space Marine chapters get access to. Storm Shield, Cyclone Missile Launcher, yep. Heavy Plasma Gun. I love how they call them heavy plasma guns. That's hilarious. What we know today is a plasma cannon. And of course the plethora of grenades they had access to back in 2nd edition. Wild. So there you go, that shows you a little better. 50% characters, 25% plus of squads, and 50% of support. So for your characters, you've got your Lord, your Wolf Priest, Rune Priests, Iron Priests, right? Wolf Guard Champions. Much like the Space Marines, your Veteran Sergeants were towards your character allotment, not your squad allotment, which is interesting to note. It actually made composing lists very confusing, especially for me and my friends when we were like 11 and 12 years old. There was a lot of like dividing in order to get percentages, which kind of sucked. But if you were dealing with a round number, like a 1,000 point or 2,000 point, it's pretty easy to figure out that you gotta have in a 2,000 point army, you have to have at least 500 points for the squads. Like, that's duh. And you can have up to 1,000 points for the characters, which is just nuts by today's standards. It'd be like taking like half your army in Supreme Command detachments, right? Cool. So there's your squads, your standard Grey Hunters, Blood Claws, Longfangs, and Wolf Scouts. The core of the core of the Space Wolves force. And you can have up to 20 Wolf Guard as a squad. So that's interesting. I guess because the normal Space Marines get to take Terminators as squads. It's interesting that you get to take Wolf Guard as squads, whereas a Wolf Guard Sergeant champion that you want to add to your squads, to your normal tactical squads and stuff, or Grey Hunter squads, I guess in this case, is a character, whereas the Terminators are all the characters, right? Like, they're the veterans of the veterans. They are the Wolf Guard. They're the Wolf Lords, like personal dudes, which is wild. And it's looking like, for support, it's the same as other Space Marines. So they can ally with any other Space Marines, which is cool. Imperial Guard, Imperial Agents, Squats, and Eldar, just without an avatar. Just like the Ultramarines. And it looks like they have access to all the same support. Dreadnoughts, Rapier Laser Destroyers, Tarantulas, Bikes, Land Raiders, Rhinos, Land Speeders, and Predators. Now we get into special characters. This is interesting. Now that I think of it, we didn't see a lot of special characters in the Ultramarine book. There was only a few. These are the ones we know very well. We got Ulrich the Slayer, who is the notable wolf priest. Ragnar Blackmane, the most famous of the Wolf Lords. Excellent. Njal Stormcaller, yeah, so that's the guy I was thinking of. I said that, right? I said Stormcaller, I think? Yeah. He's the guy with the Raven. Cyber Raven. That's a cool, really cool piece of artwork. Sweet. Psychic Mastery level 4. Makes sense. Nice. It's armed with a bolt pistol, frag grenades, crack grenades. He also carries a mighty rune staff. Power armor. Can carry 3 Wargear cards, and these must be chosen as a Psychic Hood, a Rune Staff with the Stormcaller, and the Nightwing Cyber Raven. There you go. So we saw those in the Wargear cards section. Logan Grimnar, another famous Wolf Lord. Awesome. Now, these are ones I'm unfamiliar with. I'm not sure still exist. Maybe you guys can comment below and tell me if these characters still exist in the Space Wolf fluff. But we've got Durfast of Mordrak. Never heard of that guy before. And the Wolfguard Ranulf. Are these in the current Space Wolf fluff, guys? Are they in the rules? I don't know. Is this something 2nd edition and they just deleted in 3rd? Let me know. I'm really interested to know, actually, because these characters don't seem familiar to me. And even though, like I said, I played in this edition, and I always had an interest in the Space Wolves, I never actually got into the Space Wolves. I still to this day would love to have a Space Wolf army, because when it comes to the Space Marine chapters, they're probably the coolest. But, like I say, I have a massive painting queue right now, and the last thing I need to do is start a new army, but that is off topic. Moving on. Bjorn the Fell-Handed. There he is. He still exists and has an awesome model nowadays. Much cooler than this old school pewter model. But at the time we thought this model was awesome because it had a way cooler Dreadnought close combat weapon. And there's his data sheet, or data facts, I should say. I've shown you guys the data faxes in the past for all the vehicles and how that works in 2nd edition. With all his locations, the different damage tables for the locations. This was the rules for a vehicle. So you think 3rd to 7th had complicated vehicle rules? Yeah. Check out 2nd. Crazy vehicle rules. Wolflord Curl Grimblood. Don't recognize that one either. Cool. Nice. And then we've got some neat fluff here. Looks like Tyranid-centered fluff. Again, I won't read you through the fluff because that is not the aim of this video series. Just to check out these amazingly awesome classic books. Cool. I love how they just put these little bits of art throughout these books, you know what I mean? It really just pleases the eye. And they've done it since the beginning of time. Games Workshop has always done this since the beginning of printing these books, as we've seen through this series. So go back and watch all the videos if you haven't yet, because there are some awesome books that I've shown you guys and will continue to show you guys. Alright, now the fun stuff. The catalog pages. Sweet. Look at all the old pewter minis, guys. So it's interesting that they show the Space Wolf specific guys here, because really, if you look at it, like this is your standard Space Marine, right? Like your standard Mark 7 armor? Mark 6 or Mark 7 armor? Yeah, Mark 7 it says here. So this would be your Grey Hunters. And as you can see, the only difference in the sculpt is that he's got a diamond jewel in the center of his eagle instead of a rounded one. And he's got the little like wolf tail hanging off his belt, which is really neat. They all have the wolf tails, actually. And of course we've got our characters: Ragnar Blackmane, Ulrich the Slayer, Jarl Stormcaller. Again, I'm pretty sure all these guys have newer, updated models at this point. The old Second Ed stuff is just, like I say, it's just nostalgic. It's just fun to look at. So there you go. There's Bjorn the Fell-Handed, and it actually shows you here. So we're looking at all the same standard assembly instructions that we saw in the Dreadnought in the Ultramarines book. Obviously, the only real difference is the sarcophagus part. The whole front part here is a different sculpt. And like I said, the arm here and the claw is different than your standard pewter Dreadnought. But they used to do this because that way they could mold the same pieces, and it would be less expensive to make a new mold for just these 3 pieces, or 4 I guess, because the pole here has a wolf skull on it instead of your standard like humanoid skull. And they'd be able to use all the other Dreadnought pieces, right, and not have to make a whole new mold for the whole thing, especially since it's all individual pieces anyway, right? But yeah, you can see just the sheer amount of pewter that went into these Dreadnoughts back then. That's why I was saying it's like literally a paperweight. The thing weighed a ton. Like literally plunk it onto the table. Punk! It would make like a sound when you put it down. We used to play on a ping pong table when I was a kid too, and it was just like punk! Oh god, there's a Dreadnought. That's one of the scariest things in the game. Whereas now we have like Imperial Knights and stuff, and Warhound Titans and Bane Blades, Shadow Swords. Anyway, the old Iron Priest model, cool. Servitors. Still, to this day, actually, I still love these Servitor models, and I would love to get my hands on a whole bunch of them, just for the shits and gigs. Wolfguard and Power Armor, there you go, so those are your veteran sergeants. Actually, those are spectacular models, even to this day. If the scale wasn't off, like obviously the plastic kits they've been coming out with in 3rd, 4th, 5th edition, they've slowly been making Space Marines bigger. And if you actually put, even though this model looks amazing, if you actually put that next to a modern day plastic Space Marine, like I'm not even talking Primaris, I'm talking about your normal tactical Marine, this guy will actually look very tiny in comparison. Like not extremely different, if you mixed 1 or 2 in here or there, it would be okay, but like people might not notice, but when you hold them like right next to each other, you will definitely notice. So it's kind of sad, but it is what it is. Everything changes, things evolve. There's nothing wrong with us spending some time and looking back over the old stuff. So the old Long Fang models, awesome. So again, they would use the same pewter heavy weapons that the Devastator models we saw in the Ultramarine book would have used. They just literally made different torsos with wolf pelts and stuff all over them. The Sergeant with the Power Axe just looks awesome. And there's your Blood Claw specific dudes with knives and grenades and stuff, more so than the Grey Hunters, which really just had extra pelts. These guys actually have like grenades, and you can see each one of them has a knife. This guy actually has 2 knives, even though he's got a power fist. Why? Ow. And a sweet handlebar mustache, of course, because you can't be a Space Wolf without a sweet handlebar mustache. And these two Space Marine captains we actually saw in the Ultramarine book, so those are standard. But we have a Space Wolf captain here with a cool wolfy helmet. So that's specific, but again, the same caped backpack that all the other Space Marine characters use. So again, they just make the core torsos, and then the same backpack it's used on all the characters, just to save them having to make more molds. Things were done as inexpensively as possible back then. In fact, they probably still are now. But Assault Marines, excellent. In fact, looking at them, I don't see any Space Wolf specific markings on them. That's interesting to note. They didn't have Space Wolf specific jump Marines. I guess the Blood Claws kind of replaced the battlefield role of the standard jump Assault Marine, but that doesn't mean that Space Wolves don't have jump Assault Marines in their army. Of course they do. In fact, looking back at the army list, I didn't actually see standard Assault Marines. Let's take a look here, guys. Yeah, no. No, they don't even have them. It would just be Blood Claws, I guess, to fill that role. And I guess, like I said, you can ally in Space Marines. But let's take a look at the Blood Claws. Yep, they can be given jump packs for 25 points a model. Cool, so there you go. So your Blood Claws are your Assault Marines. They're just not default jump packs. Whereas other Space Marine chapters, they would be default jump packs. Cool. And again, standard Devastators. Those are your generic Space Marine Devastators. I guess they just include them here to give you a bigger variety of models. And as I showed you in the Ultramarine book, this is actually exactly the same page of all the various marks of armor. It's just fun to look at this page, actually, especially because now they actually have both resin models and plastic models of all the various marks. That it's just fun to look back at these old pewters. And you can actually see how they've changed quite a bit. Like, you look at the Mark III here. Here, I'll zoom in for you guys. Look at the Mark III armor here. And he's actually got like a solid face mask. Whereas the Mark IV is exactly what we're used to seeing in the Betrayal of Kelth box, right? It's got that like fishy face. But the Mark III has the same aesthetic with this hanging down, this plate hanging down here, and you got the very choppy knee pads and stuff. But the Mark III helmet now in the plastics looks very much more like the Mark II helmet back then. Now Crusade armor also has this helmet, but it's interesting that they sort of got rid of this aesthetic with the Mark III. Of course, all the other marks follow suit. They still look very much like they did back then. It's just, of course, they've improved the sculpts drastically. There you go, guys. Moving on to more stuff. We've got some cool Terminators. Oh, look at the old Cyclone launcher. Wow. So boxy and silly looking. There's your Wolf Guard specific Terminators. These would be your generic Terminators, it looks like. Yeah, there's nothing Space Wolf specific about these models over here. However, these are covered in pelts, wolf tails, teeth, skulls. Very Space Wolfy. You can see right here them all fully assembled. And your plastics. The old Land Raider I've spoken about in the past. Just ridiculously tiny in comparison to the current Land Raider. Like I say in 3rd Ed when they came out with what is the current plastic Land Raider kit. It was at the time the biggest plastic model they'd ever made. It probably stayed the biggest one until the plastic Baneblade came out back in 4th when they first released Apocalypse. And the old Rogue Trader Rhino and Predator. They even came out with another Predator before I started playing the game, which actually had a sort of boxy pewter sponsons, as well as a rounded but less rounded, less dome-like pewter turret on it. This was the full plastic kit that came out in Rogue Trader, which is interesting. When I started playing the game, they'd already come out with a new pewter variant of this. But this is still cool to look at. Again, I love how everything's like striped and stuff. Funny how they couldn't paint up some Space Wolf ones for the catalog. They got an Ultramarine one here, we got a Blood Angel one here, and a Dark Angel one here. Whatever. No one will notice. It's black and white, right? Yeah, I noticed. Oh, cool, and Wolf Scouts. Nice. Following in the old plastic aesthetic, rather than in the more... I guess it was 3rd edition that they came out with the pewters, and then continued the new plastics sort of based on the 3rd ed pewter aesthetic. This is the old Rogue Trader sort of aesthetic. It's amazing how things were just... The sculpts were like a little more organic back then. Like, it actually looks like a person sculpted these. You know what I mean? They have inconsistencies and strange proportions, and it's like someone actually sat there and sculpted these out of putty. Someone who wasn't like an amazing sculptor, you know what I mean? Whereas now everything's done with 3D, and you know they make a 3-up and they shrink it down, and I don't even know if they do that anymore. It's probably all done CGI now and then just made into a mold. So one final look at the old school paint jobs. This is pretty cool little army right here. Again, this is the Space Wolf Codex, so you've got the predominantly Space Wolves, but they've shown allies of the Dark Angels chapter, the Blood Angels chapter with their cool Death Company, and then a bunch of Ultramarines just for good measure, I guess. I'll just leave that up for a second so you guys can take a good look at that craziness. Deathwing Terminators. Coolness. Awesome. I thought about maybe doing this series in chronological order, and then I realized that, you know what, we should probably just go in order that sort of makes sense. So I would continue with the Space Marines, but we've done a couple of Space Marine ones now, and I want to give some of the other armies a showcase and show you guys really the breadth of the 2nd edition. And especially for me, the reason I'm doing this series is because of nostalgic reasons. And of course, so next time I'm going to pull out my own book from when I was a little kid. Look at how torn up the spine is and how crazy this is. We're going to take a look at Codex Orcs and just how goofy the orcs were back in 2nd edition and how awesome they were. So anyway, I hope you guys are loving this series so far. I'm loving doing it. And in fact, I've gotten some really nice comments on Facebook, on Instagram, as well on YouTube, and even in person. I'm loving doing this, and I think you guys are loving seeing it. So if you haven't yet, and you do love these videos, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, because that goes a long way to help us here at Encounter Wargaming. Plus, right now, we're trying to get up to 2,500 subscribers, so if you guys hit that subscribe button and share this video, you will be entered into our contest to win a Forgebane box set. How awesome is that? If you love our content, if you love our battle reports, you love our podcast, you love everything, the hobby tutorials and the train tutorials, these videos, any of the stuff that we do here on Encounter Wargaming, please go down in the description below and check out our Patreon campaign, because we don't really do this to make money, but it costs money to do this, so please check out our Patreon campaign. And it's not just helping us here, and it gets you all kinds of extra content. It allows you to see our Twitch streams, our live Twitch streams after they've gone live, so if you didn't actually see it when it happened, you get to see it later, and only the patrons get to see that. Plus, it'll perpetually get you 10% off thewarpainter.com. You can save all kinds of money on paints, and they can be shipped right to your front door. So, I mean, that's wicked awesome, right? And other than that, please, like I say, hit subscribe, hit like, and we will see you at our next encounter.
Like a monkey in a rocket on his way back home. Okay.